Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Welcome you all for this Chaitanya Charitamrta session. And before we continue, let's offer our respectful obeisances unto Srila Prabhupada, the Vaishnava Acharyas, Shri Panchatattva, Radha Krishna.
Om Jnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapad Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye.
Vancha
Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine. Mukham karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yatkripatamaham vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So we welcome you all for this session on MadhyaLila chapter 4, where we were discussing the glories of one very, very wonderful devotee, Sri Mādhavendra Purī. So in this chapter, in the last session, we discussed about how Mādhavendra Purī actually established the deities of Gopalji, who came to his dream and asked him to bring him out of the bushes and establish a nice temple for him. And he saw to it that the Brahmanas were allocated who would take care of the everyday worship. After that, we saw that he gets another dream. And now this time, Gopalji was demanding that go to Malaya and get Chandan for me from there. And he makes a very specific request that Mādhavendra Purī should go himself, not like arranging through somebody, but getting it himself. So here we'll begin with Mādhavendra Purī's journey towards Jagannath Puri to procure that Chandan or sandalwood. Shantipura Aila Advaita Charyera Ghare Purira Prema Dekhi Acharyanandantare.
When Mādhavendra Purī arrived at the house of Advaita Acharya in Shantipur, the Acharya became very pleased upon seeing the ecstatic love of Godhead manifest in Mādhavendra Purī.
Tanrathani mantra laila yatana karina. Chalila dakshine Purī tanre dekhadina. Advaita Acharya begged to be initiated by Mādhavendra Purī. After initiating him, Mādhavendra Purī started for South India. So here we read that what is that one thing which fascinated Advaita Acharya so much that he decided to take initiation by Mādhavendra Purī. So it was not about his caste, it was not about his knowledge, it was not about his expertise in various areas, but seeing his ecstasy and devotion, his love for Krishna. So that inspired me, that inspired him. And that should be the actual parameter when we are deciding on whom do I take initiation from. So we should not base it on the fact that how many people he has initiated, how popular this guru is, but how much devotion and dedication he has for the Supreme Lord. Remodate kaila gopi nath darshana, tanra rupa dekhina hoila vihibala mana.
Going into South India, Sri Mādhavendra Purī visited Remuna, where Gopinath is situated. Upon seeing the beauty of the deity, Mādhavendra Purī was overwhelmed.
Nritya Gita kari jaga mohane vasila, kya kya bhoga lage brahmane puchila. So he has reached Remuna and he is having the deity of this gorgeous, darshan of this gorgeous deities of Gopinath, and he is all in ecstasy, and there he is inquiring, kya kya bhog lage? So he is inquiring the brahmanas over there. So it says that in the corridor of the temple, from which people generally viewed the deity, Mādhavendra Purī chanted and danced. Then he sat down there and asked the Brahman what kinds of foodstuffs they offered to the deity. So this is his inquiry because he has just established a temple and he has come to another gorgeous temple. So he wants to know that what is happening here. Sevara sausthava dekhi anandita mane, uttam bhoga lage etha bhuji anumane.
Sevara Saushtava Dekhi. From the excellence of the arrangements, Mādhavendra Purī understood by deduction that only the best food was offered. So Mādhavendra Purī could do an anuman, or he could deduce that they have such an excellent arrangement for the deity worship, so they must be offering the best of ingredients and items for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord.
Yaiche iha bhoga lage sakale puchiba, taiche bhiyane bhoga go pale lagaiba. Mādhavendra Purī thought, I shall inquire from the priest what foods are offered to Gopinath, so that by making arrangements in our kitchen, we can offer similar foods to Sri Gopal. So now when we hear that he's directly asking what all do you offer to the deities, we may get the doubt that, okay, so Mādhavendra Purī probably, not Mādhavendra Purī, but if we were there, probably we were thinking, okay, so what offering is there and what will I get? But Mādhavendra Purī is not thinking about himself. He's just thinking that because here the arrangements are so super excellent, if I can do something similar in my temple also there in Vrindavan for my Gopalji, if I can also serve so nicely. So with that intent in mind, he was actually inquiring that what all is offered to Gopinathji in Remuna. Lagi puchi lena brahmane rasthane, brahmana kahila sabha bhoga vivarane.
When the Brahmana priest was questioned about this matter, he explained in detail what kinds of foods were offered to the deity of Gopinath.
Sandhyaya bhoga lage kshiramrita keli nama, Dvadashamrita patre bhari amrit samana. The Brahmana priest said, in the evening, the deity is offered sweet rice in 12 earthen pots. Because the taste is as good as nectar or amrit, it is named Amrit Keli. So now here another interesting thing what we can observe is that Mādhavendra Puri was asking, and the Brahmana, without any hesitation, without thinking that why should I share my secrets with the other person. So he is actually telling in detail what all is being offered. And here in this shloka, he is talking about the best offering which happens there. So there they have this special kheer offering which tastes like nectar or amrit, and that's how it gets the name Amrit Keli. So he is describing about these various offerings, and then he says that in the evening 12 earthen pots of Amrit Keli or sweet rice is offered to the deities. गोपीनाथेर क्षीर बोली प्रसिद्ध नाम यारा पृथ्वी ते आयचे भोगा काहा नाही यारा.
This sweet rice is celebrated throughout the world as Gopinath Kheer. It is not offered anywhere else in the world. So this was the most celebrated and the most famous and the most luxuriant of all bhogas that was offered to the Lord. And it is mentioned here that it is prasiddha, that it is famous everywhere in the world as Gopinath Kheer or Kheer. And it is not offered anywhere else in the world. So this was the most special thing that was being offered, and I'm sure Mādhavendra Puri became very, very inspired and excited about this payasam.
Hena kali se bhoga Thakure lagila Shuni puri gosai kichu mane vicharila. While Mādhavendra Puri was talking with the Brahman priest, the sweet rice was placed before the deity as an offering. Hearing this, Mādhavendra Puri thought as follows. So they were discussing this kheer, and this kheer offering came. The time came like that the time of offering of the kheer arrived. So Mādhavendra Puri started thinking, Ayache takshira prasad alpayadi pai Swada jani taiche kshira gopale lagai.
If without my asking, a little sweet rice is given to me, I can then taste it and make a similar preparation to offer my Lord Gopal. So this was his desire. So this is so amazing, because if we were there, possibly we would have heard about this very, very special bhoga being offered to the Lord, which is famous all over the world, and it tastes like nectar. And then when we hear so much of glorification, we may just be very excited that if we receive one pot of sweet rice, we will just taste and experience that bliss of Krishna Prasad, and it will be so beautiful, tasty. But here, there was no desire in the heart of Mādhavendra Puri to enjoy this Mahaprasad. What he was thinking, without my asking, if I can get a little bit, that is enough, because the whole focus is on serving the Lord. So if I can taste, I can understand how it has been cooked, the recipe I'll understand, and then possibly I can recreate the same bhoga for my Lord Gopal atop Govardhan Hill.
इच्छा लज्जा पाना विष्णु स्मरण कैला हीन काले भोग सारी आरती बाजीला. Mādhavendra Puri became greatly ashamed when he desired to taste the sweet rice, and he immediately began to think of Lord Vishnu. While he was thus thinking of Lord Vishnu, the offering was completed and the Aarti ceremony began. So here, just because this thought came to him that only if I get a little bit to taste, not for any sense gratification, but for replicating something similar for his deities. So that thought came, and yet he was so ashamed. Actually, Srila Prabhupada writes there in the purport that whenever the offering is taken for the deities, so if anybody sees that offering, anybody develops the desire to have that offering while it is being offered or before it is being offered, then the whole thing is considered contaminated. So
it cannot be offered to the deity.
It cannot be offered, yeah. So even the thought should not come that only if I eat or how would it taste. So here Mādhavendra Puri is demonstrating that principle. I mean, he is elaborating that principle that even the thought has come now, not for his sense gratification, but for offering to the Gopal deity. And yet he is so ashamed that how could this thought come to my mind?
And we will see that if we go to Jagannath Puri temple and we are there at a time when just before the bhoga offering is going to happen, we will see that there are possibly hundreds of Jagannath servants who are carrying the bhoga into the bhog mandap. So there's a huge hall where all the bhoga cooked is placed, and from there actually the offering happens. So when we see these servants of Lord Jagannath, their whole face is tied up, their head, only their eyes are visible, otherwise everything is tied up. They cannot smell the bhoga also. So no smell, nothing, and no mouth, so that the bhoga doesn't contaminate. And they will carry these covered pots, and they will carry those pots into the bhog mandap, which is a closed space, and then from there the pujaris offer the bhoga to Jagannath. And sometimes when you visit some ISKCON temples, usually the deity kitchen is very close to the altar, but if it is a little far, when the bhoga is being carried, they will actually cover the whole bhoga with a cloth, and then it is taken to the altar, and there only it is removed and offered to the deities without anyone else seeing it. And especially it is mentioned, if a crow or a dog sees bhoga, then that should not be offered to the deities.
Arati dekhiya puri kaila namaskara bahire aila kare kichu na kahila ara. After the arati was finished, Mādhavendra Puri offered his obeisances to the deity and then left the temple. He did not say anything more to anyone. So this was just one fleeting thought in his mind. He did not disclose it to anybody, and he was so ashamed, moreover, that he just attended the arati and then he came out. Aya cheta vritti puri virakta udasa Aya cheta paile khana nahe upavasa.
Mādhavendra Puri avoided begging. He was completely unattached and indifferent to material things. If, without his begging, someone offered him some food, he would eat. Otherwise, he would fast. So we saw something similar in the previous session also, where Mādhavendra Puri was on the banks of Govind Kund, and he was under a tree. And there also he was chanting, and he was planning to take rest, and he had not eaten anything. And then that's the time when actually Krishna appeared as a small cowherd boy, and he asked him, why are you fasting? In my village nobody fasts, and then I have brought you a pot of milk, and you drink this milk, and I'll come back and take this pot. So this is the principle with Mādhavendra Puri was following. So of course he exalted Vaishnava, and so this was his practice, that he would not beg. And he was, because he was at a platform that he was unattached and he was indifferent to material things. So if somebody would offer him some prasad, he would accept, otherwise he would simply fast. He would not ask anyone.
Premamrita trutta kshodha trishna nahi badhe Shira ichha haila tahe mane aparadhe. A Paramhamsa like Mādhavendra Puri is always satisfied in the loving service of the Lord. Material hunger and thirst cannot impede his activities. When he desired to taste a little sweet rice offered to the deity, he considered that he had committed an offense by desiring to eat what was being offered to the deity. So this is what Mādhavendra Puri's level was. He was actually a topmost devotee, or here it is mentioned as Paramhamsa. So he was a topmost devotee, and he was not inflicted by material hunger, thirst and other things. He had crossed all that level. So just because that desire had come to him, so that is why he was treating it as an offense or an aparadh.
And that is the reason why the deities did not take it as an offense, because there was no material desire involved.
Gramera shunya hate vashikaran kirtana Etha pujari karila thakure shayana.
Mādhavendra Puri left the temple and sat down in the village marketplace, which was vacant. Sitting there, he began to chant. In the meanwhile, the temple priest laid the deity down to rest. So Mādhavendra Puri had left the temple after offering his obeisances just after the arati, and then he came to this village marketplace, which was vacant because it must be quite late in the evening, and he sat there and he began to chant. And at the same time, the deities were being laid down to rest.
So here Srila Prabhupada writes a beautiful purport where he says, even in the Paramhamsa stage, one cannot give up chanting. Haridas Thakur and the Goswamis were all engaged in chanting a fixed number of rounds. Therefore, chanting on beads is very important for everyone. even though one may become a Paramhamsa. This chanting can be executed anywhere, either inside or outside the temple. Mādhavendra Purī even sat down in a vacant marketplace to perform his chanting. A Paramhamsa devotee is always engaged in chanting and rendering loving service to the Lord. Chanting the Lord's holy names and engaging in his service are identical. So here Mādhavendra Purī is teaching us this very important principle. Now he was feeling that he has committed some offense or some aparadh. He was treating his desire to have that kheer or taste that kheer as an offense because offering was still happening and he got this desire. So now many of you ask this question that if I do something wrong, if I'm doing some mistake and I understand that that was wrong or sinful, what is the prayashchita? How do I rectify that? So here Mādhavendra Purī himself is as a
Teacher.
As a teacher, he's teaching that if we make some mistake, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And if we do not want to make a mistake, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Srila Prabhupada emphatically writes here that chanting on beat is very important and chanting can be executed anywhere and everywhere, not necessary that you have to sit in the temple and you have to chant. And then he also says that holy names and serving Krishna is actually identical. So that is why every day in the morning we gather and we chant in association of devotees from 6 to 8 in the morning. I'm sure many of you are already joining, and those of you who are not, please make a commitment that you would join the japa session, if not for 2 hours, for 1 hour or half an hour, or for whatever time possible. Nija kritya kari pujari korila shayana swapne thakura asti balila vachana.
Finishing his daily duties, the priest went to take rest. In a dream, he saw the Gopinath deity come to talk to him, and he spoke as follows. So after putting the deities to rest, the pujari finished his personal duties and he went to take the rest. And that time, the worshipable Lord of this pujari came to his dream and he started speaking.
Utah pujari kara dvara vimochana Shira ek rakhi yachi sannyasi karana. Utah pujari, are utho, get up you priest. Kara dvar vimochan, open the door of the temple, open the door, get up and open the door. Kshira ek rakhi yachi sannyasi karan. I have kept one pot of sweet rice for the sannyasi Mādhavendra Purī. So because Mādhavendra Purī got that desire and he did not communicate to anybody, but then there was Krishna standing directly in front of him when he had that desire. So Krishna, what to do? He has to act on his devotee's desire. So that is why Krishna has secretly kept one pot of sweet rice for Mādhavendra Purī.
And this is so amazing. They had a fixed number of pots which they will offer to the deities every day. The pujari put the fixed number of pots, and when removing, somehow because of an arrangement of the Lord, the pujari did not see that one pot is missing. So he removed, and then later this is happening.
Dhandara achale dhaka ek kshira hoya tomara na janila taha amara mayaya.
This pot of sweet rice is just behind my cloth curtain. You did not see it because of my tricks. So Lord had made a complete trick. He won out of those pots. He removed one pot and then he hid it behind the curtain, where usually, unless there is a need to change the curtain or something, the curtain remains in its place and the pujaris not always go there. And then, of course, it is Lord's Maya. So when the Lord does not want anyone to see, who can see?
Madhava Puri Sannyasi Ache Hate Tavasina Taha Ketai Kshira Shigra Dehalana. A sannyasi named Mādhavendra Purī is sitting in the vacant marketplace. Please take this pot of sweet rice from behind me and deliver it to him. Swapna dekhi pujari uthi karila vichara snana kari ka pat kuli mukta kaila dwara.
Awakening from the dream, The priest immediately rose from bed and thought it wise to take a bath before entering the deity's room, and then opened the temple door. So this is the actual practice, or the proper practice, that when we lie down in the bed and we are sleeping, so body becomes impure, and in that impure state we cannot enter the altar of the Lord. So we must take bath, put on fresh clothes, and then only when we are purified and clean externally, then we should enter the deity room. And that's how he went and opened the deity door.
Dhandara achala tale paila se shira sthana lebi shira lana haila bahira. According to the deity's directions, the priest found the pot of sweet rice behind the cloth curtain. He removed the pot and mopped up the place where it had been kept. He then went out of the temple. So he exactly could find the pot of sweet rice hidden behind the cloth curtain. So he picks it. And again, after offering, so when we take off the offering, at that time, we are supposed to clean the place. So he mopped that place and then he goes out of the temple. Dwarodiya grame gela se chiralana hate hate bole Madha Purī ke chahina.
Closing the door of the temple, he went to the village with the pot of sweet rice. He called out in every stall in search of Mādhavendra Purī. So he got the pot of rice, closed the temple, and he began searching for Mādhavendra Purī.
Shiralaha yara nama Madha Purī Toma lagi Gopinatha Shira Koila Churi. So he is calling out, Mādhavendra Purī, Mādhavendra Purī. Whose name is Mādhavendra Purī? Please come and take this pot. And then what he is saying? Toma lagi, because of you, Gopinatha Shira Koila Churi. So because of you, Gopinath has to steal the pot. So Gopinath has stolen this pot of sweet rice for you. Shirala na sukhe tumi karaha bhakshane Toma sama bhagyavana nahi tribhuvane. The priest continued, would the sannyasi whose name is Mādhavendra Purī please come and take this pot of sweet rice and enjoy the prasadam with great happiness? You are the most fortunate person within these three worlds. So he's telling that you are the most fortunate. Gopinath has stolen something for you. So who can be more fortunate than you? So, and this is another beauty of Krishna. Whatever he does, whatever it may appear that Krishna is stealing here, and generally stealing is not considered to be a great activity. But then why Krishna is stealing is because he wants to give pleasure to his devotees. He wants to fulfill the desire of his devotee. So everything, whatever Krishna does is glorious.
How can a mundane rascal understand the pastime of Krishna and judge whether he is moral or immoral? Since Krishna is the absolute truth, there are no mundane distinctions such as moral or immoral. Whatever he does is good. This is the real meaning of God is good. He is good in all circumstances because he is transcendental, outside the jurisdiction of this material world. So this is what Srila Prabhupada is writing in the purport, and he's saying, who are we? Who are we to judge Krishna and say that this is immoral and he does something immoral or something is moral? Who are we to judge? Krishna is the absolute truth. He is the supreme Lord. Whatever he does is moral. So there, for him, because he is absolute truth, there is no every activity of his is good. And Prabhupada saying that is a meaning when we say God is good. There is nothing, there is no bad exist in the Supreme Lord.
Eta shuni puri gosai parichaya dila Shira diya pujari tanre dandavata haila. Hearing this invitation, Mādhavendra Purī came out and identified himself. The priest then delivered the pot of sweet rice and offered his obeisances, falling flat before him. So now this pujari was personally serving Gopinath deity. But for him, Gopinath has never stolen the pot of sweet rice. So when he heard this whole thing directly from Gopinath in his dream, and he could estimate the greatness of Mādhavendra Purī. So that is why instantly he paid Dandavat, or falling flat before him. So this is, as I was discussing in the beginning also, this is the criteria of who is a good devotee or who is a great devotee. So it is not based on my varna or my ashram or my knowledge or anything else. It is just based on how much I'm attached to Krishna, how much I'm attached to my service to Krishna, to what degree have I surrendered to Krishna.
How much do I understand Krishna Tattva? How much do I understand Krishna according to the words of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra? So if I understand him properly, if I understand the Guru Tattva properly, as I've learned from a bona fide spiritual master, as I've heard from the previous acharyas, and as I've heard from the scriptures, then I'm properly situated.
When the story about the pot of sweet rice was explained to him in detail, Sri Mādhavendra Purī at once became absorbed in ecstatic love of Krishna. Mādhavendra Purī, I mean, we cannot estimate how he would have felt. Like, Gopinath is going to that degree that he is stealing a pot of sweet rice just because Mādhavendra Purī got this flickering desire that only if I get very little this thing to taste. Prema dekhi sevak kahe haiya vismita Krishna ye ihara varsha haya yathochita. Upon seeing the ecstatic, loving symptoms manifest in Mādhavendra Purī, the priest was struck with wonder. He could understand why Krishna had become so much obliged to him, and he saw that Krishna's action was befitting. Eta boli namaskari korila gamana aveshe korila Purī se kshira bhakshana.
The priest offered his obeisances to Mādhavendra Purī and returned to the temple. Then, in ecstasy, Mādhavendra Purī ate the sweet rice offered to him by Krishna.
Patra prakshalana kori khanda khanda kaila bahir vase bandi se thikari rakhila. After this, Mādhavendra Purī washed the pot and broke it into pieces. He then bound all the pieces in his outer cloth and kept them nicely. So the pot, the mud pot in which the kheer was kept, he washes it after finishing the kheer and he breaks it in small portions and he ties it together in a cloth. Pratidena eka khani kore na bhakshana khaile prema vishahaya adbhuta kathana.
Each day, Mādhavendra Purī would eat one piece of that earthen pot, and after eating it, he would immediately be overwhelmed with ecstasy. These are wonderful stories. Adbhuta Kathan.
Thakur more kshira dila loka sab shuni dine loka bhida habe more pratishtha jani. Having broken the pot and bound the pieces in his cloth, Mādhavendra Purī began to think, the Lord has given me a pot of sweet rice, and when the people hear of this tomorrow morning, there will be great crowd. So he, as the bottom footnote says, that Purī was fearful of becoming famous. Now we are discussing after 500 years later and we are relishing so much this pastime. Imagine at that time when the people of that village, Remuna, would get to know in the morning that, oh, Gopinath stole kheer for this devotee, Gopinath stole kheer, and then how they would all come running to have darshan of him. So because of that fear, that what if I'll become popular? People will come, crowds would come to see me, to meet me. So this is the fear which was coming to Mādhavendra Purī. Se bhaya ratri sheshe chalil Shri Purī se khane Gopinathe dandavat.
Thinking this, Sri Mādhavendra Purī offered his obeisances to Gopinath on the spot and left Remuna before morning.
Walking and walking, Mādhavendra Purī finally reached Jagannath Puri, which is also known as Neelachal. There he saw Lord Jagannath and was overwhelmed with loving ecstasy. So now, because of that fear, Mādhavendra Puri has left that place. Now, it is so striking. It is so strikingly opposite. In the current times, we observe people going to any length to doing anything to become popular, right? And the more popular they become, the more proud they feel. Okay, so I have these many followers and my followers are growing by such strong number. And here we have one devotee who's running from Remuna, though he absolutely loves Gopinath, yet he's just leaving that place and going out of that place because what if he becomes popular? प्रेमावेशे उठे पड़े हासे नाचे गाया जगन्नाथ दर्शने महासुख पाया.
When Madhavendra Puri was overwhelmed in the ecstasy of love of Godhead, he sometimes stood up and sometimes fell to the ground. Sometimes he laughed, danced, and sang. In this way, he enjoyed the transcendental bliss by seeing the Jagannath deity. So, by having darshan of Lord Jagannath in Jagannath Puri, Madhavendra Puri was overwhelmed with this love of God, and these were the natural these of him standing up and falling down and laughing and dancing and singing all spontaneously was being done by Madhavendra Puri. It was all the symptom of his love.
माधवपुरी श्रीपादाइला लोके हैला ख्याति सब लोक आसी तानरे करे बहु भक्ति. When Madhavendra Puri came to Jagannath Puri, people were aware of his transcendental reputation. Therefore, crowds of people came and offered him all sorts of respect and devotion. So, though he had come from Remuna to Puri to save himself from people, here again there are so many devotees coming because before him has reached his transcendental reputation. Pratishthar svabhave jagate vidita yena vanchitara haya vidhata nirmita.
Even though one may not like it, reputation as ordained by providence comes to him. Indeed, one's transcendental reputation is known throughout the entire world. So, even whether we like it or we don't like, according to providence, according to our destiny, one gets certain type of reputation. And here it is mentioned that indeed one's transcendental reputation is known throughout the entire world. So at one place Prabhupada said that fame means to be famous as a devotee. So if one is famous that he is a great devotee, he is a very wonderful devotee, that is real fame.
Pratisthara bhaya puri gela palana Krishna prema pratishtha chale sange gadana. Being afraid of his reputation, Madhavendra Puri fled from Remuna. But the reputation brought by love of Godhead is so sublime that it goes along with the devotee as if following him. Yadyapi udvega hoila palaite mana Thakurera chandan sadhana haila bandhana.
Mādhavendra Puri wanted to leave Jagannath Puri because the people were honoring him as a great devotee. So this he did not like, that he was being honored by so many people as great devotee. So this is because of his exalted nature. He was an exalted Vaishnava, and in their humility they do not accept any respect. However, this threatened to hinder his collecting sandalwood for the Gopal deity. So his objective of coming to Jagannath Puri was to collect the sandalwood which his Gopal deity in his own place of Govardhan had asked him to bring.
Jagannather sevak yata yote ka mahanta sabake kahila puri gopala vratanta. Shri Madhavendra Puri told all the servants of Lord Jagannath and all the great devotees there the story of the appearance of Shri Gopal. So he narrated as how he got a dream and then he tells the entire story. And when all the devotees at Jagannath Puri heard that the Gopal deity wanted sandalwood, in great pleasure, they all endeavored to collect it. Raja Patra Sane Yara Yara Porichaya Tare Magi Kara Pura Chandan Karila Sanchaya.
Those who were acquainted with government officers met with them and begged for camphor and sandalwood, which they collected.
एक विप्र एक सेवक चंदन वहिते पूरी गोसाईरा संगे दीला संबल सहिते. One Brahman and one servant were given to Mādhavendra Puri just to carry the sandalwood. He was also given the necessary travelling expenses. So now during that time, taking the sandalwood from Jagannath Puri to Vrindavan was not at all easy. In fact, it was quite complex. They had to go through various territories. In between, there were areas of Muslim rulers, and carrying so much chandan in such big quantity. So he was given all the necessary support to do that, because when people heard and when the king was informed and everybody was aware that this is for the Gopal deity because he personally has asked to get it from that place, so everybody was coming forward and helping him. So one Brahman and one servant was also allotted so that they can carry the chandan along with Mādhavendra Puri. घाटी दानी छाड़ाईते राजा पात्र द्वारे राजा लेखी करी दीला पूरी गोसाईर करे.
To get past the toll collectors along the way, Mādhavendra Puri was supplied with the necessary release papers from government officers. The papers were placed in his hand. So not just people were given allocated to Mādhavendra Puri, he was given some Lakshmi also, because he may have to pay toll and there will be expenses on the way. And also the necessary release papers were given from the government so that Mādhavendra Puri does not have a problem and the toll collectors facilitate his passage.
Chalila Madhava Puri Chandana Lana Kata Dine Re Mudate Uttari Lagiya. In this way, Mādhavendra Puri started for Vrindavan with the burden of sandalwood, and after some days he again reached the village of Remuna and the Gopinath temple there. So this place Remuna is quite close to Jagannath Puri. Both the places are in Odisha. So soon after a few days he actually reached again to Remuna. On the way to Vrindavan, he reaches Remuna again. Gopinath charane kaila bahu namaskara prema vesha nritya gita karila apara.
When Mādhavendra Puri reached the temple of Gopinath, he offered his respectful obeisances many times at the lotus feet of the Lord. In the ecstasy of love, he began to dance and sing without cessation. So previously, Lord had stolen for him the kheer, and he ate the kheer. He took the balanced pot, broke it into small pieces, but he immediately left. That night itself he left. So he did not have a chance to come back and have darshan of the Lord. So, but now he could do that. He is back again at Remuna, and now he again had darshan of the Lord. And out of his great gratitude and love and affection for the Lord, he offered his obeisances many, many times in front of the Lord.
Puri dekhi sevak sab samman karila Shira prasadiya tanre bhiksha karaila. When the priest of Gopinath saw Mādhavendra Puri again, he offered all respects to him and giving him the sweet rice prasadam, made him eat. Se ratre devalaya karila shayana Shesha ratri haile puri dekhila swapana.
Mādhavendra Puri took rest that night in the temple. But towards the end of the night, he had another dream.
Gopala asiya kahe shuna he Madhava Karpura chandana ami paila masaba. Mādhavendra Puri dreamt that Gopal came before him and said, O Mādhavendra Puri, I have already received all the sandalwood and camphor. So now this is the third time that Gopal has come to his dream. The first time to tell where Gopal was and requesting him to take him out. The second time he asks for sandalwood to go to Malaya and get sandalwood from there. And the third time here he's again coming, and though Mādhavendra Purī is in Remuna, he's saying that I have received the sandalwood and camphor which you are bringing for me. Now you just grind all the sandalwood together with the camphor and then smear the pulp on the body of Gopinath daily until it is finished. So he's saying, I have received now what stock you have with you. You just apply it to Gopinath deity. So where you are in Remuna, you grind sandalwood and chandan, make a pulp or a paste of it and apply to the Gopinath deities, and in that way your seva is complete to me. So actually that time, as I was mentioning, that it is not very easy to carry such huge quantity of sandalwood from one state to another. So understanding that how difficult it would be for Mādhavendra Purī to get everything there, Gopalji comes in his dream and he relieves him of that extra service. गोपीनाथ आमार से एक अंग होया, यहाँ के चंदन दिले हबे मोर तापक्षया.
There is no difference between my body and Gopinath's body. They are one and the same. So this is, Gopalji is continuing to speak to Mādhavendra Purī in his dream, and he's saying that there is no difference between me and this Gopinath deity. Therefore, if you smear the sandalwood pulp on the body of Gopinath, you would naturally also smear it on my body. Thus, the temperature of my body will be reduced. So we understand that in the hill of Govardhan, sometimes becomes very, very hot, and the deity, would feel that heat. And we saw also in the previous session that how Gopalji was saying that I am here and there is wind and there is heat and all so much trouble is there, take me out. So similarly, that's why he said you go and get some chandan and karpur. So if both the things are ground and they are applied on the skin, there is amazing fragrance and it really cools the body. So the real sandalwood and camphor, both when applied, it cools down the body. So this is what Lord is saying. So if you apply it on the body of Gopinath, I'll also become cool.
Dvidhana bhavihana kari haki chumane, Vishwas kari chandan deha amara vachane. So he's saying that don't think about it later. You should not hesitate to act according to my order. Believing in me, just do what is needed. So he is assuring, because he knows that Mādhavendra Purī may start doubting that whether I should actually apply it, or because I have to take it there, what to do. So don't get into any duvidha na bhaviha. So don't get into any type of confusion. Just follow my instruction.
So Lord is doing his best to convince Mādhavendra Purī
not to carry that chandan.
Not to carry and apply here. Finish the entire stock of sandalwood and camphor.
Eta boli Gopal gela, Gosai jagila, Gopinather sevak gane, Dakiya anila. After giving these instructions, Gopal disappeared and Mādhavendra Purī awoke. He immediately called for all the servants of Gopinath and they came before him. Prabhu ragya hoila ei karpura chandana, Gopinathe ranga nitya karahalepana.
Mādhavendra Purī said, smear the body of Gopinath with this camphor and sandalwood I have brought for Gopal in Vrindavan. Do this regularly every day.
यहाँ के चंदन दिले गोपाल होइबे शीतल, स्वतंत्र ईश्वर तानरा आज्ञा से प्रबला. If the sandalwood pulp is smeared over the body of Gopinath, then Gopal will be cooled. After all, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is completely independent. His order is all powerful. So he's explaining that whatever order Krishna gives, or Gopinath in this case has given, that order itself is all powerful, and all what we are supposed to do is just follow the orders. Grishmakale Gopinath Paribe Chandana Shuni Anandita Haila Sevake Ramana.
The servants of Gopinath became very pleased to hear that in the summer, all the sandalwood pulp would be used to anoint the body of Gopinath. So these servants of the deity of Gopinath also became so ecstatic. They said, wow, this is so amazing because this is so hot. And deities would feel it so hot. And now we have so much of sandalwood and we have so much of camphor that we can anoint them on the form of the Lord, and the Lord will be so comfortable even in this heat.
Actually, this same festival, even till date, we celebrate. So shortly, we would be beginning with a festival called Chandan Yatra, where actually the chandan is smeared on the body of the deities, and they are completely covered, because the period, we call it Agni Mas, where the summers are at its peak. So there is this 21 days when Krishna's body is covered with sandalwood paste.
And in some temples, the Utsava deities are taken out for boat ride. So that happens in Jagannath Puri, it happens in Sridham Mayapur, and there's very wonderful boat festival also happens.
Puri kahe ei doi ghoshibe chandana ar jana doi deha dibaye vatana.
Mādhavendra Puri said, these two assistants will regularly grind the sandalwood. So we remember that there was a Brahmana and a servant. So that's what Mādhavendra Puri is saying, that these two assistants will regularly grind the sandalwood, and you should also get two other people to help. I shall pay their salary. Diba ye vetana.
Hey mat chandan deya pratyah ghashiya Paraya sevak sab anand kariya. In this way, Gopinath ji was supplied ground sandalwood pulp daily. The servants of Gopinath were very pleased with this. So Gopinath was happy, and the servants were also very happy. They had got these 4 people who are actually grinding the sandalwood and keeping it ready. So as we were talking about how in ISKCON temples also we celebrate this festival of Chandan Yatra, and the devotees are actually given this opportunity to grind the chandan and make it ready so that next day it can be applied on Krishna's body.
And even every day, some amount of chandan is ground every day morning, and then after the abhishekam of the deities is over, that chandan and tulsi is offered to the Lord, and then a little prasadam chandan is taken out, and when the Guru Puja happens in the morning, then that chandan is offered to Srila Prabhupada and all the assembled devotees.
Pratyah chandan paraya yavat hoila anta tathaya rahila puri tavata paryanta. In this way, the sandalwood pulp was smeared over the body of Gopinath until the whole stock was finished. Mādhavendra Puri stayed there until that time. Grishma kale ante punah nila chala gela Nila chale chatur masya anande rahila.
At the end of summer, Mādhavendra Puri returned to Jagannath Puri, where he remained with great pleasure during the whole period of Chaturmasya. So there is this period of Chaturmasya, which the saintly people would usually stay in one place, and they will intensify their bhajan. They will intensify their devotional practices of Shravanam and Kirtanam. And they will stay in one place, and there are different practices which are done, which vary from 1 month to the 2nd to the 3rd and to the 4th month. So these are Chaturmasya, means a period of 4 months where we intensify spiritual practices, and there are certain rules and regulations to be followed during this time.
Shri Mukhe Madhava Pure Ramrita Charita Bhakta Gane Shunana Prabhu Kare Asvadita. Thus, Sri Chaitanya Mahāprabhu personally praised the nectarian characteristics of Mādhavendra Puri, and while he related all this to the devotees, he personally relished it. So if we remember, this whole pastime was in flashback. Actually, Chaitanya Mahāprabhu has reached that place, Remuna, and he was describing to his associates the entire katha. प्रभु कहे नित्यानंद करह विचारा पूरी सम भाग्यवाना जगते नहीं आरा.
Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Nityanand Prabhu to judge where there was anyone within the world as fortunate as Mādhavendra Purī. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Nityananda Prabhu, you judge, you estimate the great fortune of Mādhavendra Purī. Is there anyone else more fortunate than him, for whom the deity personally stole the pot of sweet rice?
दुग्ध दान चले कृष्ण यान रे देखा दिला 3 बार स्वप्ने आसी यान रे आज्ञा कोइला. Mādhavendra Purī was so fortunate that Krishna personally appeared before him on the plea of delivering milk. So first time Krishna gave personal darshan, and then 3 times the Lord gave orders to Mādhavendra Purī in dreams. So much the Lord was attached to Mādhavendra Puri's devotional attitude and services that thrice he came to Mādhavendra Purī in his dream, and he gave very, very specific instructions as what he wants him to do. Yandra prema veshahana prakata haila seva angikara kari jagat tarila.
Being obliged because of the loving affairs of Mādhavendra Purī, Lord Krishna himself appeared as the Gopal deity, and accepting his service, he liberated the whole world. So that is how we see that the devotee creates great fortune for everyone else, for this material world. So Mādhavendra Purī was such an exalted Vaishnava that by his love and affection, being obliged by that, Lord appeared as a deity. So Lord Krishna himself appeared as Gopal deity, and he began accepting service from Mādhavendra Purī and all the other devotees in nearby villages, and that's how, the Lord, because those people could serve the Lord, there they became liberated. We see similarly, by the compassion of the Vaishnava Acharyas, by the compassionate instruction of His Divine Grace, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he instructed Srila Prabhupada and of course another of his disciples to go to the West and spread the message of Bhagavad Gita and the message of Lord Chaitanya. And that's how Srila Prabhupada traveled, crossed over oceans, although he was a sannyasi, and he established the teachings of Bhagavad Gita and the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He established deities in Western countries among the people who did not know ABCD of Vedic culture. But somehow Prabhupada could train them, establish the deities, and that's how he liberated the Western world and the rest of the world and all of us.
Yandra lagi gopinatha kshira koila churi ateva nama haila kshira chorakari. On account of Mādhavendra Purī, Lord Gopinath stole the pot of sweet rice. Thus he became known as Kshir Chor, the thief who stole the sweet rice. So Krishna enjoys when he is addressed with a particular name which is associated with his devotees. So here Krishna gets a name Kheer Chor. Why? Because he became the chor of the kheer, or the thief of the kheer or sweet rice, just to give pleasure to his devotee. Karpura chandan yanra ange chadaila anande puri gosaira prema uthaila.
Mādhavendra Purī smeared the sandalwood pulp over the body of Gopinath, and in this way he was overpowered with love of God.
Mliche deshe karpure chandan anite janjala Puri dukha pabe iha janiya gopala. Puri dukha pabe, Puri would get in trouble. That was what Gopal deities knew. So that is why it says that in the province of India governed by the Muslim, there was much inconvenience in traveling with sandalwood and camphor. because of this, Mādhavendra Purī might have gotten into trouble. This became known to the Gopal deity. So Gopal deity was aware of that.
And that is why that arrangement was made, that Gopalji said, okay, you have come to Raghunath, great. There is no
That's
difference
it.
between
Yeah.
me and Gopinath. You apply that chandan and camphor that I asked for me, you apply to this lady.
Mahadaya Mahaprabhu Bhaktavat Chandan Pari Bhakta Shama Karila Safala. The Lord is very merciful and attached to his devotees. So when Gopinath was covered with sandalwood pulp, Mādhavendra Puri's labor became successful. So he accepted the chandan through Gopinath. And that's how everything became successful. Purira prem prakashtha karaha vichara alaukika prema chitte lage chamatkara.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu placed the standard of Mādhavendra Puri's intense love before Nityanand Prabhu for judgment. All his loving activities are uncommon. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, indeed, one is struck with wonder to hear of his activities. So here we see that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has himself appeared in the Supreme Lord who has appeared in the mood of his devotee, as his devotee. So he is saying, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is so inspired and he is glorifying so much the deep loving devotion of Mādhavendra Puri, and he is also inspiring Nityanand Prabhu to appreciate the uncommon activities of Mādhavendra Puri.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So here we can read that it says, indeed, one is struck with wonder to hear of his activities. So we want you to write in the comment box, which is that one activity in this entire episode of Kheer Chor Gopinath, which you would feel like you are stuck with wonder. Like, wow, like the wow moment. So please write it down in the comment section of the YouTube link, and we would be reading that. And thank you all.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai
jai.
Chaitanya Charitamrta ki jai, Krishnadas Kaviraj ki jai,
Jai.
Nitai Gaur Premanande.
Hare Hare.